Right now, Nigeria Senate President Bukola Saraki says the 10.5 million out-of-school children in the country is a ticking time bomb.
Saraki stated this in Abuja while receiving a UNICEF delegation. He also pledged the legislature's readiness to do all it can to address the issue through funding and material resources. According to the United Nations Emergency Fund, UNICEF, Nigeria has approximately 10 million out-of-school children, or OSCs, the highest number in the world. Nigeria has been holding the #1 position since the year 2000, and the number keeps increasing yearly.
That's consolidating the #1 status. Now, according to the UN agency, 60% of out-of-school children in Nigeria are located in the north. Nigeria accounts for 47% of the world's population of out-of-school children. Pakistan ranks second with the most out-of-school children in the world after Nigeria, and Yemen comes third. In Pakistan, a country entrenched in internal conflict, 5.3 million children do not attend school. Pakistan also has the world's largest number of girls not in primary school at approximately 3.1 million.
Yes, and Malala Yousafzai, do you remember her? The notable young education activist who was shot in the head by the Taliban in 2012 while going to school. She is Pakistani. According to statistics from UNESCO, 58 million children from ages 6 to 11 are not in school worldwide. In sub-Saharan Africa, more than 30 million children do not go to school, and that's according to UNESCO. But while UNICEF puts the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria at 10 million, the UBEC, that's the Universal Basic Education Commission, says 13 million Nigerian children are out of school, representing more than half of the number of out-of-school children worldwide. All right, at this point, let's bring in our guest who is joining us to discuss this. He's the founder of Involve Africa Project, Ibrahim Owolabi. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Pleased to be here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So what's responsible for this alarming figure? 47%? Nigeria accounts for 47% of OSCs worldwide.
Basically, for me, we have lots of factors responsible for the out-of-school increment or increase in percentage. Start with as the funding for education. It's really poor in this country. UNESCO has recommended 26% in budgetary allocation. And here we have about 8% in budgetary allocation for education, which of course is not close to what we can achieve for universal basic education. Beyond that also is the fact that conflict-affected areas, communities within the north particularly do not have access to basic, equitable and inclusive education. And we also need to understand that marginalized and vulnerable groups are also not taken into consideration into this. So if governments and agencies involved, as well as private citizens as you and I, can see reasons to encourage and ask government to invest more, partner more, and advocate, increase awareness on the importance of education. With this, we're going to deliver quality education for a sustainable Nigeria.
Okay. Now, let's get into this issue. From the records we have reeled out now, Nigeria has been at the #1 position of having the highest number of out-of-school children since 2000.
Yes.
That was before Boko Haram.
Yeah.
That was before any of these issues,
exactly.
as the case may be. So what could be the factors that are responsible for that? Because it would have been gathering momentum since the 90s.
In and out. Basically, it's funding. She says communities, even in Lagos, in some states in Nigeria, aside the north, that see having access to primary schools, a community needs to move from their base to another place so that their kids can attend school. So funding is a challenge. We're not investing more. Government is not placing basic education as a priority. Instead, we're celebrating state creation in and out, year in and year out. So education is one thing. Government, successive government, it's 17 years counting line, and the statistics have been increasing. It's an indicator that we're not investing more.
So with the Universal Basic Education Commission and free meals and all of that, those are not adding. They're not incentives enough. Of course, you talk about, you know, funding. Maybe I should throw it in here.
Yes.
398 billion naira in the 2017 budget. That's what's been set aside for education.
Yes.
So all of this that, you know, government has been trying to do with UBE and all of that, it's not making any difference. Is that what you're saying?
The UNESCO has recommended 26%, which is a minimum standard to lift the population affected all over the world out of poverty. You know, when we educate the future, we're saving it tightly. So the one we're doing, we can do more because we have all it takes to increase the budgetary allocation. We're funding government facilities, security, feeding. It's even more than education. It means there is priority misplacement. So one of the key ways to lead us out of this is to increase funding. There's no other way around it. If we increase it, then it works better. Okay,
maybe let's narrow it down to understanding the funding you were talking about. How does funding translate to the more number of children in schools?
Yes, creation of more schools. When the government is allocating more, it means we're going to have more schools, which results in the fact that every community will have a primary school that kids within that area can access. Beyond that, quality materials to make education more interesting and facilitate quality learning. And Lagos is better. I've been to some northern states in Nigeria. I cannot just connect. People are living below the poverty line. They are not encouraged to come into schools because, yeah, there are schools in there, but it's still not up to what it should be.
And reports say about 100 pupils to one teacher under a tree. That's a typical picture you get from the north that you're talking about. So how do you get kids off the streets to the schools, the available schools? I mean, you talk about the need to build more schools.
Exactly.
Yeah. How do you get them off the streets?
One of the tasks from the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is that, one, we must increase awareness of the importance of education at local communities. Beyond the availability of schools, some parents still do not see reasons to put their kids in school. Some religion extremism is one of the factors responsible for this also, saying Western education is evil. So we must increase and heighten reasons kids must get into school, 1. 2, we must of course lobby government to make free, equitable education and inclusive for all as a priority and make firm commitment about it. You know, there are kids living with disability.
Yes.
Most states still do not see reasons to have inclusive schools. Every community, standardly, every community should have an inclusive school where someone with Down syndrome can attend a school and not be at home. So one of the ways we can do it is we increase awareness. Governments make education as a priority also, and you know.
Now, is there a link between this poor school enrollment with a situation where you have schools largely in private hands? I mean, you said that government should build more schools, but there seems to be a gap that is being filled by private
entrepreneurs who are proprietors of schools.
Quality education.
You mentioned Lagos. We have lots of that in Lagos. Private schools all over the place.
Yes, quality education.
Are they? I mean, quality education, as in the private schools are providing quality education.
Of course they are. You can see the standard.
But should you leave education in private hands? That's my question.
You should not, in a more ideal and coordinated society, because government should make life easy for all. But the standard of learning here, the learning environment is not aiding quality learning. You see someone learning under the tree, and you have a private school providing a really standard learning facility. So private entrepreneurs will surely take advantage of the gap and make more money. So government should, invest more.
All right. Africa is known to be a very cultural continent generally. Are there any factors culturally or factors religiously or religious or cultural factors responsible besides the funding you talked about that is making these children stay out of school?
Yes, there are so many. Let's start with religion. I'm a Muslim, and I am aware that in the north, the majority of Northerners will prefer Islamic education to Western education. That's the reality.
But it's still education.
Yes, it's still, but we live in a world where we're globally compliant. To stay competitive, you need cross-education.
Okay.
So you need to know about science. Islam will teach you science also, but the science we operate in this century is a westernized science, where you need to know what is in line. So religious extremism or cultural influence also. In Southwest, we're good. We want to read. We want to spend our life professorate.
Want to explore.
Exactly, and get access to information.
But even in the South that you talk about,
Well,
I mean, if you drive through the streets of Lagos, for example, you still find underage school kids, hawking and all of that. Should parents be arrested or something?
Yes,
there
is a child rights law in Lagos asking that every children should stay in school during school hours.
Even must.
Exactly, and the State Social Development Ministry is working on ensuring that we close that gap and put children more at school.
Right, Ibrahim Awolabi, founder, Involve Africa Project. Thank you very much for coming on the program right now.
It's thrilling to be here.
Thank you
really
so
nice
much.
to see you.
Thank you.
Right.